Hello everyone. So in today's video, we are going to go over this paper titled Latent Hatred, a benchmark for understanding implicit hate speech. So I found this paper really interesting and I wanted to read it with you all. So the authors are May El Sharif, Caleb Ziems, David Mushlinsky, Vaishnavi Anupindi, Jordan Sebold, Munmunde Chaudhary, and Dee Yang from UC San Diego and Georgia Institute of Technology. I'm really sorry if I mispronounce any of those names. So, judging by the title itself, you can see that it has something to do with implicit hate speech. So we'll have a look at how did they define implicit hate speech as well. So the abstract. Also, this paper is fairly recent. The abstract. Hate speech has grown significantly on social media, causing serious consequences for victims of all demographics. Despite much attention being paid to characterize and detect discriminatory speech, most work has focused on explicit or overt hate speech, failing to address a more pervasive form based on coded or indirect language. To fill this gap, this work introduces a theoretically justified taxonomy of implicit hate speech and a benchmark corpus with fine grained labels for each message and its implication. We present systematic analysis of our dataset using contemporary baselines to detect and explain implicit hate speech, and we discuss key features that challenge existing models. This dataset will continue to serve as a useful benchmark for understanding this multifaceted issue, and we also have this website to GitHub repository to ask for access. Right. So I guess the abstract was pretty clear. If most models are able to catch like or not only very explicit but explicit hate speech, but things like using sarcastic means to demean a social group or things like that, they are not really well identified by current models. So this is what they're looking at in the introduction. Hate speech is pervasive in social media. Platforms have responded by banning hate groups and flagging abusive text. And the research community has developed increasingly competitive hate speech detection systems. While prior efforts have focused extensively on overt abuse or explicit hate speech, recent works have started to highlight the diverse range of implicitly hateful messages that have previously gone unnoticed by moderators and researchers alike. So figure 1 provides an example from each hate speech type, explicit versus implicit. So I won't be reading this, but you can just see like what the difference is between the two. In one, the slurs are more apparent and they are more obvious, but in the second, they have an implied statement as they've written. Right. So implicit hate speech is defined by coded or indirect language that disparages a person or group on the basis of protected characteristics like race, gender, and cultural identity. So this last part is the same as the definition of hate speech. The implicit part is being attributed to the speech being coded or being indirect language. So extremist groups have used this coded language to mobilize acts of aggression and domestic terrorism while also maintaining plausible deniability for their actions because they'll just say that we meant something else. Because the speech lacks clear lexical signals, hate groups can evade keyword based detection systems. So if a keyword is catching some slurs or its variations, the model these sentences just slip past the radar, and even most advanced architectures may suffer if they have not been trained on implicitly abusive messages. So, the primary challenge for statistical and neural classifiers is the linguistic nuance and diversity of the implicit hate class, which includes indirect sarcasm and humor, euphemisms, circumlocution, and other symbolic or metaphorical language. So, I'm not sure what circumlocution means, so let's just look that up. Okay, the use of too many words to express something. Okay, yeah, so sort of like circling around the topic. So uh, it's difficult for the model to get what exactly is being talked about. The type of implicit hate speech also varies from dehumanizing comparisons and stereotypes to threats, intimidation, and incitement to violence. Importantly, the field lacks a theoretical grounded framework and a large scale dataset to help inform a more empirical understanding of implicit hate in all of its diverse manifestations. So they identified this major issue because there's no data set at this point when the paper came out. To fill this gap, we established new resources to sustain research and facilitate both fine grained classification and generative intervention strategies. Specifically, we develop a six class taxonomy of implicit hate speech that is grounded in the social science literature. We use this taxonomy to annotate a new Twitter dataset with broad coverage of the most prevalent hate groups in the United States. So this dataset makes three original contributions. First, it is large and representative sample of implicit hate speech, with second, fine-grained implicit hate speech labels, and third, natural language description of the implied aspects for each hateful message. So you can see how this would be useful in a variety of different tasks. Finally, we train competitive baseline classifiers to detect implicit hate speech and generate its implied statements. While state-of-the-art neural models are effective at a high-level hate speech classification, they are not effective at spelling out more fine-grained categories with detailed explanations the implied message. So the results suggest that a dataset can serve as a useful benchmark for understanding implicit hate speech. So what they're saying is that the advanced neural network models are effective when you only have a high level hate speech classification task, but they're not as effective at like giving out the exact category of the message and generating the detailed explanations, which I guess is the implied message. So the related works, uh, numerous hate speech table datasets exist, and we summarize them in Table 1. The majority are skewed towards explicitly abusive text since they are originally seeded with hate lexicons. So seeded with hate lexicons or racial identifiers or explicitly hateful phrases such as "I hate Target." So this basically means that when they scrape Twitter or other websites to look for hate speech, they look for sentences which have some hate words or racist words or words which have this sentences which have this form, etc. Because of a heavy reliance on overt lexical signals, explicit hate speech datasets have known racial biases. Among public datasets, all but one have near or above a 20% concentration of profanity in the hate class. So, uh, uh, they've explained this in table 1. So basically they're saying is that even profanity is being considered as hate speech, I guess. So a few neurally which it shouldn't be. Profanity by definition I think is not hate speech. Yes, so not all profane words are constitute hate speech because they might just be used in between conversations. Maybe those words are usually used by some social groups in their day-to-day conversation, or they are being used amongst friends and so on. So a few neutrally seeded datasets also exist. Although some may contain implicit hate speech, there are no implicit hate labels, and thus the distribution is unknown. Furthermore, these datasets tend to focus more on controversial events, for example, the Lee Rixby murder, or Burnap and Williams, or specifically hate targets, so immigrants, etc. And these bring topic bias and artificially inflate model performance on implicit examples. So consider SAP et al. For example, 31% of posts take the form of the question leading up to a mean joke. This is still need for a representative and syntactically there is still need for a representative and syntactically diverse implicit hate benchmark. So they're saying that either the datasets are too concentrated on one topic or they are not diverse enough. Our contribution is similar to the Gab hate corpus of Kennedy et al. 2018, which provides both explicit and implicit hate and target labels for a random sample of 27,000 Gab messages. We extend this work with a theoretically grounded taxonomy and fine grained labels for implicit hate speech beyond the umbrella categories. So, we extend this work. Theoretically grounded taxonomy is what I described earlier, the classes, and fine grained labels is also having marked the implicit hate speech and assault on human dignity and call for violence. Uh, so Okay, so basically they mean that beyond the normal categories, they've also uh, they like these are the umbrella categories, I guess, and there are more categories which they've focused on. Following the work of SAP et al. 2020, we provide free text annotations to capture messages' pragmatic implication. However, we are the first to take this framework, which was originally applied stereotype bias, and extend it to implicit hate speech more broadly. Implicitly, stereotypical language is just a subset of the implicit hate we cover. Since we also include other forms of sarcasm, intimidation, or incitement to violence, hidden threats, white grievance, and subtle forms of misinformation. Our work also complements recent efforts to capture and understand microaggressions, a similar elusive class that draws on subtle and unconscious linguistic reflections of social bias, prejudice, and inequality. Similar to Brett Filler et al. 2019, we provide a representative and domain general typology and dataset, but ours are more representative of active hate groups in the US, and our definitions extend to intentionally wield acts of intimidation, threats, and abuse. So basically, they've just mentioned uh, what other works have happened and how their work is different from those works. So their works can also be extended to understand microaggression and uh, how the data set is more fine grained and it has more information for the models to be trained on. So, the taxonomy of implicit hate speech. Implicit hate speech is a subclass of hate speech defined by the use of coded or indirect language, such as sarcasm, metaphor, and circumlocution, to disparage a protected group or individual or to convey prejudicial and harmful views about them. So, the NLP community has not yet confronted in a consistent and unified manner the multiplicity of a subtle challenge that implicit hate presents for online communities. To this end, we introduce a new typology for characterizing and detecting different forms of implicit hate based on social science and relevant NLP literature. Our categories are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but they represent principal axes of implicit hate. And while they may not be collectively exhaustive, we find they cover 98.6% of implicit hate, which is quite good, I guess, for the first work to do in a representative sample of the most prevalent hate ideologies in the US. So wide grievance includes frustration over a minority group's perceived privilege and casting majority groups as a real victims of racism. So this language is linked to extremist behavior and support for violence. So things like an example is Black Lives Matter and White Lives Don't sounds racist. So this is one type. Then we also have incitement to violence, which includes flaunting in group unity and power or elevating known hate groups and ideologies. So these phrases are things operate in these phrases operate in okay. So basically, they are referring to this sentence. So these some phrases address group unity while others address power or elevating hate groups and ideologies. So someone supporting Hitler comes under the latter, while someone supporting a group unity comes under the former. So the examples here. Article 20 of the UN International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights states that speech which incites violence shall be prohibited by law. Now we also have inferiority language, so which implies one group or individual is inferior to another, and it can include dehumanization and toxification. Or language that compares the target with diseased insects animals, both of which are early warning signs of genocide. Inferiority language is also related to assaults on human dignity, dominance, and declarations of superiority of the in group. So basically, I guess this would be clear to you what they mean. So if there's any specific thing you are troubled with in these parts, then you can just comment or look that up. But I believe this is all self-explanatory. Then we also have irony, which refers to the use of sarcasm, humor, and satire to attack or demean a protected class or individual. So, for example, in the context of one hate group, uh, this is an example. Irony is not exempt from our hate speech typology since it is commonly used by modern online hate groups to mask their hatred and extremism. So it might look sarcastic, but it might not be obvious that it is attacking them, but it's doing some damage. So stereotypes and misinformation associate a protected class with negative attributes such as crime or terrorism. So this class also includes misinformation that feeds stereotypes and vice versa, like Holocaust denial and other forms of historical negationism. And threatening and intimidation convey a speaker commitment to a target's pain, injury, damage, loss, or violation of rights. While explicitly violent threats are well recognized in the hate speech literature, here we highlight threats related to implicit violation of rights and freedoms, removal of opportunities, and more subtle forms of intimidation. So, with this example, I guess this would be pretty clear. So now let's have a look at the data collection and annotation process. So we collect and annotate a benchmark dataset for implicit hate language using our taxonomy. Our main source of data uses content published by online hate groups and their followers on Twitter for two reasons. First, as modern hate groups have become more active online, they provide an increasingly vivid picture of the more subtle and coded forms of hate that we are interested in. Second, the problem of hateful misinformation is compounded on social media platforms like Twitter, where around 3 out of 4 users get their news. This motivates a representative sample of online communication exchanged on Twitter between groups of the most prominent US hate groups. So basically, they're saying that Twitter is an ideal ground to get the dataset from because there's lots of hate speech and lots of parties there. So we focus on eight largest ideological clusters of US hate group known as given by the SPLC report. These ideological classes are black separatist, white nationalist, neo-Nazi, anti-Muslim, racist skinhead, Ku Klux Klan, anti-LGBT, and anti-immigrant. Detailed background and discussions on each hate group can be found at the SPLC extremist file page. So you can check that out. Uh, Now data collection filtration. So they matched all SPLC groups with their corresponding Twitter accounts using their account names and bios. Then for each ideological cluster, we selected three hate group accounts with the most followers. So one for anti-Muslim, one for neo-Nazi, and so on, and which have the most followers. So three per class. And then since they were likely to be more, this was because since they have the most followers, they are the most engaging. It's a fair enough correlation to make. We collected all tweets, retweets, and replies from the timelines of our selected hate groups between January 1, 2015 and December 31, 2017. So a total of approximately 4.7 million tweets, giving us a broad sample of hate group activities before many accounts were banned. Hateful content is semantically diverse, with different hate groups motivated by different ideologies. So, seeking a representative sample, we identified group specific salient content from each ideology by performing part of speech tagging on each tweet. So, basically, they are getting some information about how a particular group frames its tweets. Then we compute the log odds ratio with informative directlet prior for each noun, hashtag, and adjective to identify the top 25 words per ideology. So basically, they did all of this to get the top 25 words per ideology. After filtering for tweets that contained one of the salient keywords, they ran a three-way hate sonar classifier, which is a classic Davidson et al. Paper, to remove content that was likely to be explicitly hateful. So the original Davidson et al. Dataset was a seeded dataset, so it had explicit hate more, I presume. So that is why they were able to at least grab the explicit hateful sentences using that classifier. Specifically, we removed all tweets that were classified as offensive and then ran a final sweep over the neutral and hate categories, removing tweets that contained any explicit keyword found in no swear or hate space. So anything explicit, they removed it. Anything which was classified as offensive by Davidson et al.'s model, they also removed it. So now we have crowdsourcing and expert annotations. To acquire implicit hate speech labels with two different resolutions, they ran two stages of annotation. First, we collected high level labels, explicit hate, implicit hate, or non-hate. Then we took a second pass through the implicit hate tweets with expert annotation over a fine-grained implicit hate taxonomy. So this is self-explanatory. They did it in two steps and they've described it. So the first stage, which is the high level characterization. So they use MTurk, which is Amazon Mechanical Turk. Their annotators completed the high level labeling. So they gave them the definition of hate speech and examples and required them to pass a short 5 question qualification check with at least a score of 90% so they know that what they're doing. And they paid the annotators a fair wage above the federal minimum. Three workers labeled each tweet and then reached majority agreement for 95.3% of tweets, with perfect agreements on 45.6% of the data. The interclass correlation for one-way random effect between 118 raters was 0.616, which indicates moderate inter-rater agreement. Using the majority vote, we obtained consensus labels for 19,112 labeled tweets. So this is the distribution: 933 explicit, 4,909 implicit, and 13,291 non-hateful. So the next stage was to promote a more nuanced understanding of our 4,909 implicit tweets. They labeled them using our fine-grained category definition in section 3. So adding other and non-hate to take care of the situation. So basically, when they're labeling the 4,909 tweets, they mentioned the fine-grained categories and they added other and non-hate for cases where the tweet itself does not lie in any of those categories or is not hateful at all. Since these fine-grained categories were too subtle for MTurk workers, this part was done by research assistants who were their expert annotators. They trained them over multiple sessions by walking them through 7 small pilot batches and resolving disagreements after each test until they reached moderate agreement. On the next round of 150 tweets, the independent annotations reached a flies kappa of 0.61. Each annotator then continued labeling an independent portion of the dataset. Halfway through the process, they ran attention check with 150 tweets and found the agreement to remain consistent about 0.55. Finally, after filtering out tweets marked as non-hate, there were 4,153 labeled implicit hate speech tweets remaining, which means that the remaining were marked as non-hate. The per category statistics are summarized in hats. This table. In table 2, hashtag tweets pre EXPN. Not sure what EXPN means, but I guess it's explanation. So you can see, no, I'm not sure. I guess it's expansion because it's written here. So you can see the distribution here. Now we have the corpus expansion. So extreme class imbalance may challenge implicit hate classifiers. To address this disparity, they expand the minority classes both with bootstrapping and out-of-domain samples. So they trained a 6-way BERT classifier on the 4,153 implicit hate speech samples and then ran it on 364,000 close to that unlabeled tweets from the corpus. And then they randomly sampled 1,800 tweets from each of the three minority classes according to the classification inferiority, irony, and threatening. Finally, they augmented this expansion with out-of-domain samples from Kennedy et al. And Sapp et al. So this is basically enhancing their dataset. So by drawing both from OOD and bootstrapped in domain samples, we sought to balance two key limitations. So bootstrap samples may be inherently easier, while OOD samples contain artifacts that allow models to benefit from spurious correlations. So their expert annotators labeled this data, and by removing the minority labels from each process, they improved the class imbalance for a total of 6,346 implicit tweets shown in the post expansion one. So basically, what they're saying is they've some classes had too little tweets. So you can see inferiority, irony, and threatening. Yep, all of these were significantly less than the others. But after this out of domain and bootstrapping process, it's much closer, at least better than before. Hate target and implied statement. So for each of the 6346 implicit hate tweets, two separate annotators provided us with messages target demographic and its implied statement in a free text format. Implied statements were formatted as Hearst-like patterns. So target, do, are, commit, predicate, where target might be phrases. So uh, a group X would do Y, something like this. So implicit hate speech classification. Then they experiment with two classification tasks. So how distinguishing implicit and non-hate and categorizing implicit hate speech using one of the 6 classes. So basically, both of them are classification tasks. So they did a 60-20-20 split and then validated and tested SVM and BERT baselines. They tried standard unigrams, TF-IDF, and love embedding features and tuned linear SVMs also. SVMs are support vector machines. They also fine-tuned BERT with the given learning rates and the number of epochs. They also balance the training data. So uh, when they only have BERT and aug with back translation, aug is augmentation, I believe, uh, from Russian via FAIRSEC using a grid search over sampling temperature. Finally, we supplement the previous methods with knowledge-based features to learn implicit associations. So in detail, they match tweets to entities using the Wikidata knowledge corpus. So BERT plus org plus Wikidata and concept number batch. So BERT plus org plus concept net by string matching unigram, bigram, and diagram. Then we average over the pre-trained entity embeddings matched for each message. Finally, they concatenated a 768-dimensional BERT final layer with 200-dimensional Wikidata and fed this representation into an MLP with MLP is multi-layer perceptron, I guess, with two hidden layers of dimension 100 and value activation between them using categorical cross entropy loss. So basically, these are just the different models which it tuned, and you can see that BERT is performing the best and BERT plus org. So adding Wikidata and ConceptNet is not really helping. So implicit hit classification results. So you can see that the scores are mentioned. So the best is BERT plus org model. The implicit category most confused with non-hit was incitement, following by wide grievance, stereotypical inferiority, irony, and threatening. So in the six-way classification task, they find that BERT-based model again outperforms the linear models, which was more or less expected because BERT is more context aware. Uh, Augmentation does not significantly improve performance in either task since our data is already well balanced and representative because they've done that previously by expansion. Interestingly, integrating Wikidata and ConceptNet did not give any boost either. This suggests detecting implicit hate speech might require more compositional reasoning over the involved entities, and we urge future work to investigate this. So, basically, this is one line of future research which can be done. For additional comparisons, they considered a zero-shot setting where they use Google's Perspective API and the hate sonar classifier of Davidson. They fine-tuned a baseline significantly outperform both the zero-shot baselines because they are trained on explicit hate. So the challenges. To further understand the challenges of implicit hate detection and promising direction for future work, they investigated 100 randomly sampled false negative errors from the best model and found a set of linguistic classes it struggles with. So coded symbols is something which the model does not recognize, and they are contained in 15% of instances, and the model fails to grasp the semantics. While individual sentences appear harmless, implicit hate can occur. Second, they have discourse relations, like the implied casual relation between the conjunction, and so this implies that he only likes white people and so on. Additionally, misinformation, outgroup entity framing, so 25% uh, even things like this. So even problematic framing of a negative entity, even positive framing of a negative entity can be problematic, like describing a Nazi soldier is super cool. So I guess that this makes sense. Inferiority. So these are the things that the models majorly struggled with. Inferiority statements like POC need us and not the other way around also require a deep understanding of common sense. Then they also have metaphorical language, colloquial or idiomatic speech, and of course irony. So these are the things that it struggled with, and it just keeps going. Also, term bias. So given the high density of identities like Jew and Black in hateful contexts, our model overclassified tweets with these terms. So the model, instead of actually learning why something is hateful, it learned that these terms are more frequently going to appear when the sentence is hateful. Finally, we are nearing the end, the part where they explain the implicit hate speech. So I'll just be right back. Right, so sorry about that. Explaining implicit hate speech. So this section presents our generation results for natural language explanation of both who is being targeted and what the implied messages means. So generating such explanations can help content moderators flag them. Additionally, they echo efforts from social media companies like Instagram, where the application alerts the user when the post is flagged as offensive and asks them if they really want to post it. This strategy has proven successful in deterring hurtful comments. So our work also inspired a similar strategy for implicit hate speech by showing the user the implied meaning of their post before it is posted. So this stops the problem before it's even there in the public domain. So the task. So the goal is to develop a natural language system that, given a post, generates a hateful post's intended target and hidden implied message meaning. Therefore, they formulate the problem as a conditional generation task. So during training, the generation model takes a sequence of tokens as input. So with start token str, then the tweet tokens, then a target group, and and implied statement, and minimizes the cross entropy. So during inference, our goal is to mimic real world scenario where only the post is available. Therefore, the input to the model only contains the post tokens, and they experiment with multiple decoding strategies to generate the explanations. So, uh, which are basically the hate group and the explanation. So, a ground truth comes from the free text target demographic and implied statement annotations, which they collected for 6,346 implied tweets. So, these are some examples from the data set. Then this is the split, and they fine tune OpenAI's GPT and GPT-2 pre-trained language models to the task. They fine tune it using Blue and ROGL. We pick Blue since it is standard for evaluating machine translation model, and Rogue since which is used in summarization context because both have been adopted extensively in prior literature. So these automatic metrics indicate the quality of the generated target group and implied statement compared to our annotated ground term. So in terms of ngram, since these are two ground truth annotations per tweet, we measure both the average metrics across both reference. So then they fine-tuned the hyperparameters and selected the best model based on the performance of the development set. For decoding, we generate one frame for gritty decoding and three hypotheses for beam search and top P nucleus sampling with P.92 and choose the highest scoring frame. Now the generational results. In table 4, we find GPT-2 outperformed GPT, which was to be expected. In both target group and implied statement, the difference is likely because GPT-2 was trained on English web text while GPT was trained on fiction books, and web text is more similar to our domain. The Blue and Rogel scores are higher for target group than for implied statement consistently. This is likely because implied statement is longer, more nuanced, more difficult to generate. Additionally, uh, Beam Search achieves the highest performance for both GPT and GPT-2, followed by TopP. This is not surprising since both the decoding strategies consider multiple hypotheses. Since Blue and Rogel measure word overlap and not semantics, it is possible that the results in Table 4 are overly pessimistic. The GPT-2, so basically they're saying that it looks for words being similar, so if the words are not similar it does not perform as well. Like the metric does not give it a high score, but it might just be using alternate words and being good enough and be good enough. So overall our generation results are promising. Transformer based models may play a key role in explaining the severity and nature of online implicit hate speech. So I guess now we are at a conclusion. In this work, we introduce a theoretical taxonomy of implicit hate speech and large-scale benchmark corpus with fine-grained labels for each message and its implication. As an initial effort, our work enables the NLP communities to better understand and model implicit hate speech at scale. We also provide several state-of-the-art baselines for detecting and explaining implicit hate speech. Experimental results show that neural models can effectively categorize hate speech and spell out more fine-grained implicit hate speech and explain these hateful messages. Additionally, we identified 8 challenges in implicit hate speech detection. So, all of these. To mitigate these challenges, future work could explore deciphering models for coded language, lifelong learning of hateful language, contextualized sarcasm detection, and bias mitigation for named entities in hate speech detection systems and their disconnection with the dataset. And they also demonstrate that our corpus can serve as a useful research benchmark in detecting all of these things. The ethical considerations are there. It has been approved by the Institutional Review Board. For the annotation process, they included warnings that the content might be offensive. Annotators were encouraged to stop if they felt overwhelmed. They also acknowledged the risk associated with releasing the dataset. However, we believe the benefit of shedding light on implicit hate phenomenon outweighs any risks associated with the dataset. So, risk can be using this dataset to train generator models. Then they've also thanked the annotation process funders and the people who supported the work and the anonymous reviewers and so on. So overall this paper was a great read, insightful. We also have these sections which I'll not go through. You can go through them on your own, and it sheds light on a very important aspect which is often overlooked, and I hope to see more work about this in the future. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hope to see you next time as well.